A special edition of You and Your Reps. The National Assembly is on recess until 13th April, so we took some time out to engage the leader, House of Representatives, ALHASSAN DOGUWA, on a broad range of issues bordering on the inner workings of the 9th House of Representatives and its legislative agenda. We will also feature some of our regular segments, including legislative terms and tools and Know Your Legislator. My name is Victor Azu. Welcome to the program. Constitution review is an important part of the legislative agenda of the 9th House of Representatives. And this explains why the conversation with the House leader, of course, who doubles as Deputy Chairman of the Constitution Review Committee, forms a major part of our discussion. But first, what is the legislative agenda of the 9th House of Representatives?
We have a different House of Representatives right from day one when we established the leadership of the House. A situation whereby you have an experienced lawyer, an experienced legislative guru who has been on the floor of the House of Representatives and had also played several roles ranging from minority to majority leader positions and now became the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Looking at the background the present Speaker of the House of Reps came from, and indeed the background of most members of the principal officers, body of principal officers, members who have served more than 3 times in the House of Representatives. So it's enough to tell you that we came up with a completely unprecedented kind of Congress, a situation whereby the leadership itself stands out of several other kinds of leadership that predated it. We have also set our target through what we call the legislative agenda. We have the 9th House of Representatives legislative agenda. Part of the agenda, one, is for us to come up with a kind of robust revolution, legislative revolution, whereby we will inculcate amongst our members what we call like a kind of an e-legislation experience, where we will inculcate a lot of capacity building among our leaders, quite different from what existed in the past. And I think we are achieving that, fast achieving that. And we don't also want to be an assembly or a house that will continue to, for instance, be revisiting issues of the past. And when we must revisit issues of the past, we are poised to make sure that those things that are very critical, fundamental issues, to do with the delivery of good governance of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that are trashed out. You know, when we came in, there were so many things that were outstanding. For instance, you take the PIB, Petroleum Industry Bill, which had been bedeviling previous assemblies all along. At one time it was truncated. At another time it got not signed, not accented to by the president. We now put it as a kind of target that this time around we want to get the PIB right. And by what we have started now, the PIB definitely will see the light of the day, because we have changed the narratives. What it used to be in the past was like a House member bill, a bill coming from the floor amongst members. And virtually all the efforts we have had in the past to make it succeed were efforts from the floor of the House or from the floor of the Senate. And in most cases, the government, in this case the president, successive president, have always found it very, very inconvenient for them to even assent to the bills we have been able to pass in the name of PIB. So this time around, we now said, okay, enough is enough for the House. Let us now take the executive version of what do they want. What do they want? What is the concept? What do they want to achieve by PIB? And we gave them. We now threw the ball in their court. we are now taking PIB in a different dimension. Different dimension because we are picking it on the way from the perspective of what? An executive bill. Let us now make sure that we give back to the executive what they expected. And I think with this, we are good to go. And I believe we will get this thing right. Another one is creating a kind of robust legislative participation among members. I can tell you, the 9th House of Representatives, in fact, I think is the only assembly house I can remember that has been able to produce the number of bills we have passed so far. It is also the only assembly I can remember, the only house I can remember that has been able to get the kind of attention, the kind of accent we have gotten from the executive arm of government. Why? Because part of our legislative agenda was for us to set a kind of synergy between the executive and the legislative arms of government. Gone are those days when the legislature will now be seen like a hunting dog against the executive. We felt we were all elected, and in this case elected under the platform of same APC. Majority members of the House of Representatives are APC members. Majority, not just majority, an overwhelming majority. And the executive arm of government was also elected on the platform of the APC, which means we don't have any different programs or even manifestos that we sold out to the people. So we now feel time has come when the legislature will not continue to be like a hunting dog against the executive. We look at ourselves as if we were jointly elected to carry out a joint project that you call the Nigerian project. And in doing that, we have succeeded. Let me also remind you of the fact that because of this synergy, because of this tolerance we have among ourselves, because of this understanding we have among ourselves, which of course in the past never existed, the relationship between the executive and the legislature, even in the immediate past, you know, it was like a cat and rat story. It has changed. And with this change, we have been able also to bring to bear what we call the change in the calendar. Sometimes in those days, you have a budget of 2018 or 2019 only commencing halfway in the new year, in this coming year. You have a budget of, for instance, 2018 only commencing in June 2019. It was very retrogressive. It never worked. And it made Nigeria as a country, and it also made our economy like a retrogressive economy. But with the kind of synergy and understanding we have with the executive arm of government, the 9th House of Representatives, of course by extension the 9th Senate, we have been able to now achieve a change in the cycle of the financial calendar, the budget calendar, January to December calendar. And we will continue to achieve that simply because we feel that is the best way to go, and it is what is obtained world over. And there is no point in Nigeria operating in any different manner. These are some of the few things I think we have been able to achieve. The number, if it were, for instance, if the National Assembly were an industry, our productivity in terms of production and producing bills and laws for good governance of the country has really gone very, very high, unlike the past. And in partnership with the government, we've been able to also get the government attention where the president has accented to more than 2/3 of most of the bills we sent to him. And I can also be proud to tell you that no one single bill or no one single request has ever come to the National Assembly or to the floor of the House of Representatives from the executive arm of government that we turned down. We never turned anything down from them, especially when you talk about areas of security, funding of security agencies, the police force and what have you. We have always been very conscious about the fact that the very important business of every government is about protection of lives and property of the people. So I think these are issues that we can be proud of, and we have been able to achieve them. The process has started, and we have received a lot of memoranda from various professional bodies, from various ethnic and cultural groups, as usual, asking for one thing or the other from this same process that we have undertaken, or we are undertaking in the process. And like you know, like every other legislative process, after receiving memoranda, this is one process that is not only peculiar, it is special. Special in the sense that it is a process that must be bound by referrals from the House itself. because the Committee on Constitutional Review Committee is acting for and on behalf of the entire House of Representatives. Of course, we do have same in the Senate. The two committees at the end will now have to correlate and come up perhaps with a position that you call the National Assembly position. We have done the take-up meetings with the representatives of the states, the representatives from the various zones, and even representatives from within the House, based on the specialities and relevance of committee members. Even among the, what do you call them, the standing committees, there are certain committees that are very relevant to the constitutional amendment process. For instance, the chairman of the House Committee on Rules and Business is very fundamental to any legislative process. He becomes automatically a member of the Constitutional Review Committee. The chairman of the House Committee on Judiciary, of course, by nature of where he works as the superintendent member over the judiciary, will obviously be part of the Committee on the House of Representatives. There are a lot of other committees, but based on their relevance and their area of jurisdiction, that you co-opt them automatically into the Constitutional Review Committee. The next level for the committee to go is about the public engagements, where we will now make announcements to the members of the public to come up and put in their own contributions. But no matter what contributions members are bringing in, it has to be based on the inputs we have already received from the floor of the House of Representatives. That is one way or one area or one nature of this committee that makes it stand out different from any other committee. It's different from any other standing committee. If it were an ordinary committee, ordinary standing, ad hoc committee, for instance, anybody can come up with any subject, present. But Constitutional Review Committee, because of its sensitivity, because of the nature of the work we are going through, you know what it means. Altering rules governing the democratic process of the country. Rules governing the sharing formula, what do you call it, revenue sharing formula. Very extant rules governing the operations of Nigeria as a democratic country. Certainly it has to be very sensitive. Very soon we'll roll out itinerary of events as to how we are going about to engage members of the public. I don't know whether that has been concluded or not, but very likely we are going to be unprecedented. Unprecedented is that in the sense that we may not necessarily remain within the premises of the National Assembly to hear out our people. We may come up with an unprecedented formula this time around to create various centers, perhaps the 6 geopolitical zones. We go down to the people. There are people who cannot obviously make their ways to Abuja, come and attend to our public engagements here, as it were. But when we can create a little liberalism and get down, for instance, to Kaduna, to attend to people from the northwest, that will create a very convenient window for members of the public to really participate and contribute based on the subjects we have before us. If we can, for instance, create an opening and go to Port Harcourt to listen to people from South-South, that is unprecedented. It will also offer a very good opportunity for members of the South-South or Nigerians from the South-South to also offer their own contribution as far as constitutional review is concerned. But as it is today, some of the subjects we have before us definitely will include a lot of very critical and very burning issues. The issues to do with restructuring is before us. Issues to do with creating a wider scope or wider spectrum for women participation in politics, in governance, especially as per their membership of the National Assembly, is coming up. Some people are even agitating that we create for what we call special constituencies for women, where certain constituencies will be designated only for women to run for them, so that we now create a kind of inclusion for the affirmative action, which of course is being done in some other part of the countries. Issues to do with the idea of independent candidacy. The issue of independent candidacy has for long been tabled before the House, and it has been referred to the committee on what do you call it, Constitutional Review Committee. These are some of the burning issues that I believe will certainly get out to engage on, and we expect, like I said, contributions from the members of the public to be able to come up with a document that will not only address the burning issues in the country, but especially when you are discussing about a country which is a federation, a conglomeration of so many ethnicities, conglomeration of so many religious background, conglomerations of various cultural background. So we will expect that this time around we will get it right. In some other cases where we had an attempt to alter the constitution, there were a lot of challenges. For instance, when you may have succeeded in concluding with one item or one subject or 2-3 subjects here at the level of the National Assembly, perhaps when you go down seeking for concurrence from the State House of Assembly, which is also a basic requirement, I am sure you know, you come across a lot of other problems. We have also created a special subcommittee that will engage with members of the State Houses of Assembly up initio, so that when you carry them along right from day one, they will begin to see reasons why you are coming up with one thing or the other, so that when it gets to the level of their consideration, definitely we will be flying on the same page. A situation, for instance, where you will be creating an opportunity for even an institution like in the State Assembly. I could remember last time in the 8th House of Representatives, the center here offered them what you call autonomy, financial autonomy. And at the end, we could not secure 2/3 requirement to get it passed, because members of the State House of Assembly decided to say, oh no, we don't want to be autonomous. Allow us to continue to run at the ferrule of our state governors. Very funny situation. Very funny situation. And I think it takes only a little engagement. It takes only a little contact and communication to convince them, let them see reasons why they should be autonomous. So we are coming up with this idea this time around, that as we are starting, we will also engage members of the State Assembly in the process of consideration of the matters we have before us here at the National Assembly level. Not to wait until when we finish everything and we begin now to jump pack everything to state assemblies and ask them to concur. When you can communicate, when you can synergize, when there is partnership up initio as things are continuing, then I want to believe definitely we will have a lot of issues resolved. We will also reach out to governors, let them see reasons in allowing state assemblies to be autonomous. I think the more independent the assemblies are, I believe the more functional and more productive they will be. I believe governors will begin to see reasons in that.
Normally, in a year, after doing some work, we break. Sometimes it can be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even 2 months, depending on the calendar. So recess essentially means going on break after some months of work.
And as part of the Constitution review process, we also spoke about local government autonomy.
I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that my people would like to have what you call independent local government administration. Give autonomy to local governments. Most of these problems we are facing, not even about politics, not even about the dividend of democracy. My brother, I can even tell you a convincing reason how ineffective the way we are operating our local government administration, the way local governments have been so much dependent, the more local governments have been now made like a lame duck, could be very much connected even to the problem of security that we are facing. Get the local governments work effectively. Give them their funds. Allow them operate freehand. I bet you, my brother, they will create more jobs. I bet you, my brother, they will be more functional. I bet you, my brother, if local government functions more effectively, my brother, this issue of insecurity will definitely be brought to its knee. So this is one major request from my people. They want local government function independently and effectively. This I cannot forget, and definitely I will be out for it. I don't think we will have any issue with my state governor. I won't have any issue with our state assembly about this very major requirement of local government administration. Give them their money freely, allow them work independently, allow them be autonomous. At the end, you deliver a lot of services.
The House leader is as important to the House of Representatives as he is to the executive. He also tells us why.
When you are dealing with a parliament, especially the kind of parliament we run in Nigeria, comprising 360 distinguished Nigerians, representing distinct and various constituencies of their own people, like I've said earlier on, coming from different cultural, different religious, different ethnic backgrounds, then definitely you won't expect 360 members to operate under one room without some sense of coordination, without some sense of set down rules for them to operate by. The leader of the House of Representatives, and in this case the majority leader of the House of Representatives, is in the first place expected to provide synergy and coordination among various members of the House of Representatives, no matter what political background they come from. You may be an APC member, you may be a member of PRP, you may be a member of PDP, wherever you belong. It is expected that the office of the leader of the House will coordinate your operation, the way you carry out your legislative duties on the floor. And he's called the leader of the House because he does not have too much allegiance to where he came from. Other conventional and traditional responsibility of the leader of the House, of course, is that he is the ombudsman of the government of the day. The ruling party, he represents the ruling party on the floor of the House. He also leads the caucus of his ruling party on the floor of the House. So everything that comes from the executive arm of government, including bills, including policies and programs of government, it is expected that the majority leader of the House will now be the spokesperson of the government of the day on the floor of the House of Representatives. If you like, you call me the ambassador of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, led by President Muhammadu Buhari, on the floor of the chamber of the House of Representatives. No more, no less.
And funding has been a major point of criticism of the National Assembly, with a belief in many quarters that too much money goes to the legislature. House Leader ALHASSAN DOGUWA also sheds light on the financial situation of the National Assembly.
One of the major problems we face at an institution is this bad press, this bad media perception among Nigerians that, oh, the National Assembly is taking too much from the coffers of the Federation. But so many things are quite not even, they are not being Nigerian people have not been sensitized to understand what really comes to the House, or what really comes to the National Assembly by way of funding. Sometimes if you are to even compare what we take by way of funding with the funding of other sister institutions, even in Africa here, not even in the so-called developed nations, the way we fund our institution here, the legislative institution here, my brother, is by far lower than what obtains even in countries like Ghana. For instance, agreed that in 2019, 2020, and even in 2021, that we have a budget of almost 110 billion naira for the National Assembly. But unfortunately, what Nigerians have failed to understand up till now is that when you mention 110 billion naira for National Assembly, ordinarily Nigerians will assume, oh, this is to be divided among 360 members and 109 senators. Nigerians are very much oblivious. They are quite insensitive. They don't know about other sister institutions that work along with the National Assembly. And even when you look at the National Assembly itself as an institution, there are other bureaucratic structures that work with us. We have what we call the management. The management that is being headed by the CNA are not elected officials of National Assembly. But these are bureaucratic officials that we must have to require. They have to work with us for the institution to function. They are embedded in the 20 and in the 110 billion naira you're talking about. When you come to even a greater breakdown, we have institutions that are so professionally designed to work with us. Some of them are meant to help us impact on the capacity of members. Training institutions like NILS. We have NABRO. We have National Assembly Service Commission. We have Public Complaints Commissions. We have about 5 other independent organizations that are working with us. And they have their independent budgets. They have a number of people who work with them for the National Assembly to function. And this is not only peculiar to Nigeria, this is something that is quite parliamentary all over the globe. For every parliament to work effectively, you require these organizations to work with it. We cannot work in isolation. These institutions also draw their budget from this same 110 billion naira. And one other thing Nigerians may want to know, if I tell you, for instance, in over the 9 trillion, at about 13 trillion naira budget we had passed this year, I hope you understand. Do you know that in 2018, 2019, 2020, and even the 2021 budget that we have passed this year, the total of 110 billion that people cry about is less than 1% of the total budget. It's quite less than 1% of the total budget we passed. For God's sake, my brother, for God's sake, why is it that we cannot justify 1% for an institution that is a complete arm of government?
And that last point on funding of the legislative arm of government is where we draw the curtains on this special edition of You and Your Reps. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. My name is Victor Azul. See you next time.